While millions of people still struggle with the cost of living, the richest Aussies are getting richer.
What is it that drives Harry Triguboff to keep doing this, even though he's a multi-billionaire and he's got nothing to prove?
I looked upon the business as a family.
Why jeopardise this bonanza? Why kill the geese laying the golden eggs?
Australia's richest people are getting richer. Who's climbing the list? Who's sliding down? And what does billionaire wealth in 2025 tell us about the economy we are all living in? Hello, I'm Rebecca Jones and welcome to the Bloomberg Australia Podcast. This week we're checking in on Gina, Harry and the rest of the billionaire bunch. Some so famous and with business tentacles across so many sectors, like the mononymous two I just mentioned, it's easy to develop a little billionaire blindness. But together, our 10 richest fortunes are now worth around $144 billion US. And that's up 4.6 billion this year alone. The rich are still getting richer, but how are they doing it? Who's doing better and who's doing worse? And what can we learn that's useful for us about how these billionaires think? To help me answer this question, I am delighted to welcome wealth editor Andrew Heathcote, the keeper of Bloomberg's Global Rich List, to the podcast. Andrew, thanks for joining me.
Hi, Rebecca. Nice to be with you.
Now, Andrew, the leaderboard has had some shake-ups in 2025. Who has pulled off the biggest climb among Australia's richest this year? And on the flip side, who's taken a hit?
Well, there's been no runaway leader this year, but we have seen some pretty healthy gains, particularly by those at the top of the list. Australia's richest person, Gina Rinehart, is up to around 28 billion as of the end of last week. As we all know, she's the billionaire behind Hancock Prospecting, the iron ore group that's expanded into agricultural property and some other related things. The 28 billion, which like all of our numbers is in US dollars, is enough to put her in the top 80 people on the Bloomberg Billionaires Index.
Wow, worldwide.
Worldwide. So she's up about 3 billion so far this year based on our estimates. Another name who may be familiar to people, Harry Triguboff. He's the billionaire behind the Meriton Property Group. He's up about 3 billion too, at 21 billion, based on some solid growth within his apartment building business. I guess at the other end of the scale are the billionaires behind the US-listed software company Atlassian in Scott Farquhar and Mike Cannon-Brookes. Mm-hmm. If you take Farquhar, he's down about 25% year to date on our numbers, based on a softening of the Atlassian share price.
It seems like a lot. Is that commonplace?
Yeah, look, that's they've had some very strong growth for a long time, and he still has a fortune up around the $11 billion mark, so still doing okay. And look, these sorts of wealth figures are perhaps put into context when you look at the world's richest person in Elon Musk. On our numbers, he's down about 60 billion so far this year, which perhaps in Australian terms is about 2 Gina Rineharts. Between Tesla and SpaceX and all of Musk's other holdings, he's worth around 375 billion these days, which is a pretty crazy number.
So Elon Musk has lost about $60 billion and the combined fortunes of Australia's 10 richest is around $144 billion.
That's right.
Just a little under half. That's incredible.
It's very, the numbers are so big that they are very hard to get your head around. Elon Musk very much sits at the top of the list very comfortably. And
so, Andrew, from where you sit, which sectors are proving more robust in 2025? You mentioned Atlassian before. Obviously, they're a tech company. They do operate in, a very sort of fast-moving environment. Which other industries are starting to show cracks? Is there any sort of new trends that you're seeing?
I think it's fair to say that there's no such thing, as a bulletproof sector. What our data is showing us, though, is that even with the global tariff disruption we've seen this year, most of the sectors favoured by billionaires have done okay. So if you look at billionaires within commodities, finance, retail and technology, they are up on average on a global basis. Look, technology I think has been a really interesting one. As some of the biggest gains have been by billionaires that have successfully tapped the growing market for AI. One of the biggest risers globally has been Jensen Huang, the boss of NVIDIA, the company that makes computer processors that help assist with the growth of AI projects. He's cracked the top 10 now and is up over 150 billion. And look, there's more stories like that to come, I'm sure. It seems reasonable to expect that AI as a subsector will be a source of many new fortunes in most major markets, possibly here in Australia as well.
Are we starting to see any investment from the richest here in those sort of technologies, or that's still to come?
I think it's something where people are trying to move pretty quickly to take opportunities. You know, the biggest players are overseas, but I think we're going to see there's going to be people that you or I have never heard of today that in 5 years' time I think are possibly going to be quite big names, because it is a part of the market that's going to move very quickly.
And we'll be right back. You're listening to the Bloomberg Australia Podcast. Andrew, we know that, even the richest people in the world aren't immune to things that, sting all of us, like, tax changes or tweaks to trade, dare I say, tariffs. What does the data tell you about how government policies have changed the game for our wealthiest here in Australia this year?
Most billionaires have been around a long time. Some of our richest people are in their 90s now. They've seen governments come and go and different policies come in and out of favour. I think one of the biggest benefits of having one of the world's biggest fortunes is that you can cope with most things that get thrown at you. So billionaires tend to be pretty consistent with their strategies. And look, I don't think that's really changed much this year.
Andrew, I'm interested to drill in a little more into the split between global and local investments of these big fish. Are our billionaires making more money overseas these days, or is the home market still where their biggest wins happen?
The way billionaires approach wealth is often different to what you or I are typically told we should do with our money. We get warned about not putting all your eggs in the one basket. We are told to diversify if we can manage it.
Right, yeah.
And that's great if you want to live a happy life, but if you want to build one of the world's biggest fortunes, it doesn't really work. So what billionaires will often do is to keep reinvesting in the same business or the same market. And Harry Triguboff is a great example of this. He started building apartments in Sydney in the 1960s, and that's what he's still doing. His buildings are a lot bigger now, and he's a few in Queensland, but he's built one of the biggest fortunes in the country by continuing to do the thing that he does really well. And he's been very disciplined about not getting distracted by other markets or unrelated opportunities. Where this tends to change is with multi-generational fortunes. So typically after a fortune has been handed down from the founder of the main business. But look, from what I can tell, if you want to build a $1 billion fortune, it's best not to look too far afield. It's much better to do a really good job of satisfying a market that you understand really, really well.
So on that, can you still build one of the world's biggest fortunes from Australia?
Well, yeah, for sure. And I guess technology makes that sort of thing much easier than it used to be. One of the unusual things about billionaires is that they don't really live in places the way we do. Wealth really opens things up in terms of global mobility. So when you or I want to take a trip to, say, the US, we have to book flights and accommodation and deal with airports, etc. But it's much easier when you have your own top-of-the-range private jet on standby.
Yeah.
I think one of the interesting misconceptions about that and about that high-end private jet travel is that people think it's all about luxury and champagne and all that good stuff. And sure, when you're paying over $50 million for a jet, you probably get that sort of thing thrown in. But what private jets offer billionaires is more around claiming back time. They can go anywhere really quickly. And that can be a bit of a game changer when you're talking about global billion-dollar companies.
Sort of related to that, are you seeing any trends or, interesting data points that tell us how these billionaires are impacting our nation, Australia, beyond the balance sheet, beyond the dollars, are they getting more political?
Look, I'm not sure, but I don't think so. I think they've always been political to some extent and always will be. There's different strategies to that, and it can be either done publicly or behind closed doors. But look, I think it's safe to assume that billionaires will always see value in impacting policy if they think they're able to.
So, Andrew, to recap, there has been some movement in the billionaire ranks in Australia this year. However, Gina Rinehart is still top of the tree. In fact, she's among the top 80 of the world's richest right now. The Atlassian founders, well, they've taken a bit of a hit, but they're still doing okay. Lessons that we can take away is consistency really is key for this billionaire bunch, and also focusing on what they do best. Doesn't hurt to be politically inclined, and also to not think too far into the future and be open to opportunities, but really at the same time, know what your competitive advantage is. Finally, my last question to you is, who is sitting just outside the top 10 of Australia's richest? Who should we be keeping our eyes on?
I think the Pro Medicus billionaires have been really interesting. Pro Medicus is a Melbourne-based company that develops software for medical practices. Its founders, Sam Hupert and Anthony Hall, they aren't big names. They're not perhaps famous in the way that some billionaires are, but they are each up around the $5 billion mark based on our estimates. The other ones to perhaps keep an eye on are the three Canva billionaires in Melanie Perkins, Cliff Obrecht and Cameron Adams. Canva is a graphic design software company, and there's been talk about it having an IPO for a while now. Look, if that happens, then their company could be worth more than $30 billion. That's huge on a global scale, not just in terms of Australia. So, if that IPO happens, we'd expect it to have quite an impact.
Interesting stuff. And look, if the name Rebecca Jones ever cracks the top 10, suffice to say, Andrew, you're going to be looking at my empty seat in our row in the bureau. Andrew, thanks for the chat.
Thanks, Beck.
If you found today's conversation insightful, be sure to follow the Bloomberg Australia podcast wherever you listen, and check for more on the gains, losses and power plays shaping the fortunes of Australia's billionaires, including the latest reporting from Andrew Heathcote on Bloomberg.com. Today's episode was recorded on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. It was produced by Paul Allen and edited by Ainsley Chandler and Chris Burke. I'm Rebecca Jones, and I'll see you next week.